I feel like what everybody essentially wants is experiencing this infinite love again. Everybody is trying to seek that peace, seek this infinite love in a sense, because what is the ultimate thing that you could probably experience? Like, nothing comes to mind to me but the two words, infinite love.
Leonard von Böhlen is a dedicated and insightful coach committed to enhancing self-awareness, releasing doubts, and helping you actualize your highest potential. With over 40 clients served, Leonard's expertise in personal growth and transformation is unparalleled. Certified by Mind Valley, he combines deep understanding with practical techniques to guide you on your journey towards self-improvement and fulfillment. So you yourself, I would classify as an entrepreneur, but your industry, if you will, is helping others find inner peace. How do you describe what you do?
How would I describe what I do? I would say I sit down with them one-on-one and just give them all of my attention. And I ask them some questions and I listen closely and try to help them create their dream life and co-create it.
And where did this desire come from?
So this desire came from originally me just wanting the best life for myself. So I mean, in Twitter, there's like, I feel like, two big niches, right? So it's the so-called money Twitter, and then which is also closely linked to personal development. And these kind of things are interlinked. Mindset, of course, is big when it comes to self-development, and sort of the more abundant and the more positive your mindset is, therefore also the more performant you're going to be in work, in your career, and therefore this also will translate to financial success. So essentially where this came from, I would say just also back in high school, I was always quite curious and felt like there's more to life, there's more potential, and didn't really resonate with the superficiality at times and was curious about the depth. So when when COVID came, I was having this realization that no one really come to save me. So at the time I was in a quite of a unhappy state, physically, mentally, emotionally. I wasn't really where I wanted to be. And then I knew that my parents or none other would come to save me. So it's up to myself to actually be this person that takes action and takes the steps and does what he wants in order to get the dream outcome. So that's when my passion for self-development and living a good life was born. And so I've been just spending the past 5-6 years diving deeper and deeper and deeper, and sort of see this as my passion, as my calling, and then therefore also helping others in their own journey.
So who are some of your, like, who inspires you, or who are some of the people that have inspired your work?
Right off the bat, there's one guy that comes to mind. He's called Leo Gura. So he's from the United States also, and he is running a blog called actualize.org. And it's not only a blog, it's also a podcast and it's a YouTube channel essentially. And so he is the number one person that has influenced my work the most. He's literally uploading 5-hour long episodes on deep epistemic topics and foundational episodes regarding life, metaphysics, spirituality, success, mindset, these kind of things. So his work has definitely impacted my own journey, my own development.
Okay, yeah, that's great. And I see in your bio on your X profile, it says that you help successful Gen Z entrepreneurs create inner peace, fulfillment, and amplify social impact without adding to their workload. How did you decide to focus on that demographic? What about that speaks to you?
Yeah, so this is actually something that I just decided to put into my bio last week after taking a filling out a document regarding my ideal customer profile. It's also due to the fact that people have been telling me I could be working or helping Gen Z people. I do like to work with others who are like-minded. And I mean, Gen Z is just something I've been writing down for now. And this is definitely, or this can be changing in the future. And like-mindedness is not, or it's definitely not tied to age. So it is, in a sense, irrelevant how old someone is. However, when it comes to coaching and just my service and the things I've experienced myself, it's hard for me to actually boil down what I've sort of achieved for myself internally. I feel like it's not so easy to actually articulate inner change as much as it is when it comes to outer change. So it's easy. Let's say if I would be to work with a business coach and he's going to offer me or promise me to double or 3x my income or my revenue, then that's something tangible to measure. While overall happiness and self-esteem is a bit more difficult to measure. So essentially, when it comes to inner game, I would say all of it also boils down to just one essential piece, which is, I guess, the ability to love yourself. Having self love is the key pillar to self acceptance, self confidence, self esteem, self worth, performance, productivity, social relationships, creativity, you name it. So I would say that was one of the key things that I was able to transform and just elevate and increase over the years. And yeah, so the end result, because I would say if I would tell people I sell or I promise you to increase your self love, people might not fully resonate with that, and they might not even know that that's the issue. So looking at the sort of tangible result that people will have in the end, which would be things like inner peace, fulfillment, a quieter voice in your mind, or you quieter, mental voice, essentially, just more structure mentally and just a greater sense of well-being.
So, what are your thoughts? Like, why do you think we struggle with self love? Like, why is that such a difficult thing to talk about, and why is that such a difficult thing to achieve?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's highly essential when it comes to so many different things. So, why do we struggle with self-love? I would say one of the key pillars when it comes to our struggle of why we love ourselves is because we're too strongly identified with our personality and our identity and the mental construct that we've created over the years, which always, always craves some sort of gap that needs to be bridged and closed. The only job that the mind has and the ego has is to sustain our survival, essentially, and to guarantee our survival. And being on the lower end of the social hierarchy is actually a threat to our survival. So therefore, it is a defense mechanism and a survival mechanism of the mind to compare us to others who are maybe richer than us or who are materially better off than ourselves, which then results in fear and lack of self-acceptance, which is stemming from also the lack of self-love, because we don't understand our essence, which is essentially the soul or the consciousness. And we think that we'll only be enough if we have mastered some external domain and if we've also accumulated some external goods and material wealth. So all of this is stemming back to the fact that we have forgotten who we really are. So we think we are the mind, or we think we are this personality that we've constructed, or we think we're the body, instead of realizing and understanding that as a soul, as a pure soul, as pure consciousness, there's already an infinite amount of self love prevalent. So the only thing is the mind blocking that and obstructing it. Essentially, if you like, a good metaphor would be looking at the sun, which is just the infinitely radiating soul, and the consciousness just radiating love and love and love. And you have the minds, which are the clouds, which are obstructing the sun rays from actually shining through.
Very interesting. A lot to unpack there. I think it's also interesting how two things can be true at once, where we can be part of a whole, a collective whole, perhaps, but then also we are sorted by labels that are given to us, either like implied labels, such as you mentioned, like someone having a certain amount of success or achievement relative to you, or even just a name. Like, I imagine you didn't choose the name Leonard. I didn't choose the name David. These were given to us, and we accept them. And with that, we accept many other things that we may not be aware that we're accepting. And that could lead to limitation in our thinking, the clouds, if you will, blocking some of the energy that would otherwise come from the sun. So we need to basically find the wind required to move the clouds out of the way in order to reconnect with that collective potential. What do you think about that?
I feel like what everybody essentially wants is experiencing this infinite love again. There's this one quote by this Leo Gura guy who really influenced me a lot and who I really look up to and admire, who said in one of his podcasts that you will never be satisfied with anything less than infinite love, because that is all you are. That is one of the key quotes that is determining my life in a sense. That creates a lot of clarity and understanding for the world also. So I feel like taking into consideration, this is the essence of every human being. This is my opinion in a sense, and this is not. I'm not sure if this is objective truth or anything, and everybody can sort of make up their minds individually and take what resonates with them. However, I see it that way, and since everybody has this divine essence and this divine core inside of them, and is blocking and the human mind is blocking the rays from shining through, everybody is trying to seek that peace, seek this infinite love in a sense, because what is the ultimate thing that you could probably experience? Like, nothing comes to mind to me but the two words infinite love. Like, nothing could be crazier or just more could be a higher epitome in a sense of what's achievable in life. So it's not going to be infinite money or infinite sex or infinite six packs or infinite muscle or infinite performance. Not even immortality, I would say, human immortality. So everybody's trying to seek this infinite love or just their own pleasure and their own joy and essentially love in human material pursuits, such as entrepreneurship, which is what we're doing, dating, social interactions, status, these kind of things, and sports, fashion, and more come to mind. So I feel like everybody's looking for these things outwardly instead of turning inwards and trying to rediscover. And the way to the wind that would block or that would blow away the clouds would be the observation of the clouds and trying to see if you're able to get a sneak peek of the rays.
That would be through mindfulness.
I would say definitely it starts a lot with mindfulness. So since the mind is so loud for most people, it definitely starts with self-observation, and mindfulness is essentially sitting down, taking time out of your day to consciously observe what is going on within your head, essentially within your mind. It doesn't have to be you sitting in a lotus pose with crossed legs and chanting anything. It can literally be just you sitting down or sitting back in your chair, closing your eyes and just looking at your thoughts and not hearing any music, not being on your phone or anything. And mindfulness is the way, or is one way, and there are many other more powerful tools. So one really powerful experience that I've had in my life was last October / November in Bali, and I was having a breathwork session that went on for 3 hours, which was highly purging and emotionally releasing. And essentially, there are two key steps when it comes to change, and then also the wind blowing away the clouds for you to be able to see your true essence. So number one is you actually have to become aware of those clouds. Otherwise, you wouldn't know what to do with them, and you would just take it for granted that there isn't any sun rays shining through. So once you have this awareness, then the question becomes, how do you deal with them? And yes, you can start observing them, which is a okay tool. It's just on a very mental and a very superficial level, so it doesn't really go as deep and it's not really as transformational, but it's very key to actually establish this awareness. So you cannot change anything if you're not aware of it. So awareness is key, and mindfulness helps with this awareness. However, I wouldn't say mindfulness is the most potent tool when it comes to seeing the rays shining through. And I mean, right now, what we're doing is essentially talking about how to become enlightened and how to awaken to your true essence, which is all that spirituality is about. And there are a number of, like, I don't know how many tools there are, so many. Even religion, I feel like, is to a certain degree trying to get closer to enlightenment. When it comes to Buddhist meditation and so on, I feel like that is part of Buddhism and the religious sort of practices there, and they might actually have this conscious pursuit of awakening, which is something that Christianity I don't really feel like has too strongly, or other religions also. But anyways, so number one is awareness. Number two is then letting go of the clouds. And in my case, letting go of the clouds has manifested and has shown itself as letting go of a lot of emotional trauma that we hold on to, and just limiting beliefs that we've been adopting and saying yes to and carrying with us over the years. One powerful tool, since emotions apparently store itself in the body, is to work not only the mental level, which is what mindfulness does, but also work on the physical level. And breathwork is an amazing tool for that, since breathwork is able to regulate the nervous system in such a strong way, and also alter your CO2 percentages and proportions inside your blood. This, for some reason, also helps a lot with letting go of trauma. So while I was in this breathwork session, which was literally lasting for 3 hours in total and 60 to 90 minutes of strong breathing, everybody, like out of the 50 people in the room, everybody was screaming and crying and letting go their emotional pain. For me personally, although I haven't like touched my soul, although I haven't fully embodied that sun that my essence would be, I was still able to blow away a lot of clouds, essentially. More on the mental side, but still letting go of trauma is one of the key ways of actually being able to have the sun shine a bit more strongly through the clouds and therefore feel warmer and just more joyous. And that's not really a fully spiritual soul-like practice, but it's definitely insanely helpful when it comes to just improving your overall life quality, your happiness. Like after that, I literally felt invincible for 3 days straight. I didn't have one negative thought for 72 hours. And that was only through through a 3 hour breathing session. And that was more powerful than my 5 years of meditation previously, or reading books about it, or getting coaching even. Just working on this physical level was so insanely transformational to change myself and to distill confidence and to see my self-worth and to step out of this mental cage that I've been constructing for myself for such a long time. So breathwork is an insanely powerful tool that I can recommend to anyone listening right here. And yeah, one of the literally, I see a strong before and after shift after this session. Yeah.
I've not done breath work. Could you maybe describe your understanding of why it might be so powerful?
You mean the physiological aspects of it?
I do mean that, but also any way in which you feel comfortable talking about it. I just like to understand what's different, what's so different about it.
It's actually quite weird. Like, so I'm not a certified breathwork instructor. I haven't taken any courses. I have never watched any science or any explanatory videos regarding breathwork. I've only done some sessions myself. Essentially, what you do is you lie down on your back, and in this case, I was with a group of 50 people, and then afterwards I did some other ones which were similar. And the technique is called conscious connected breathing, so CCB, and it's one of the most potent breathwork techniques I've heard of, next to somatic breathing, as far as I know. You lie down on your back. You might or not. You might have some music also, and some people they're guiding you. And essentially, what you do is you breathe in through your mouth into your belly and then into your chest, and then you breathe out again. So it's belly, chest, out, belly, chest, out, and you do that non-stop, almost, for around 60 minutes. So I think you might have some time frames in between where you also hold the breath, but it's essentially it's real work. It's like a gym session, and it's quite uncomfortable because you want to quit. It's not pleasant to breathe the whole time, and it is true in a sense that the emotional trauma, I feel, manifests as the urge to quit and to just stop breathing now and get up and do just go about your day. But then if you keep pushing, and in this one breathwork session I was doing, it's called 9D breathwork, using this CCB technique, and it's a guided session also. So you have a physical person there who's helping you, plus you have headphones on, and there's a voice speaking into your ears, and this voice is then prompting you to keep breathing, although it's hard. So you breathe the whole time, and you feel these obstacles and the trauma coming up. But then if you overcome it, this is actually when you will release it by screaming or by crying, and then afterwards you will feel relaxed and light and joyous and loving. Yeah, that's a strong emotion that I felt. I was crying because I was so proud of myself.
Can you start this cold, or do you need to work up to that level before you take on a 3-hour breathing exercise?
You can start right away. You don't have to have any experience prior. As far as I'm concerned, you're only forbidden, I think, to join if you're pregnant or if you have some respiratory difficulties and maybe some things regarding blood pressure. But besides that, it's perfectly fine for you to attend.
So what are some goals that you have in your life with your life coaching and your own development?
I feel like material and external goals are nice and they're relevant and necessary for me to sustain my survival in the sense of having the opportunity and possibility of buying food, filling up my fridge, and having a roof over my head, transportation, and so on. And therefore, yes, be able to make an income of my passion, of my interests. And besides that, the inner work I feel like is what's going to give me the most benefits and return on my time that I invest. Yeah, becoming aware of the clouds and my blind spots, and then working on letting them go is what's going to make me a more loving human being, essentially what I want for myself, which is going to give me the joy that I long for, and which is also going to enable me to be this person that is going to uplift others in social interactions. So yeah, becoming more loving essentially is one of the main goals, and which is working on spirituality and diving deep into this field. And having financial abundance is also helpful to allow me time to dive deeper into myself. So yeah, I feel like that's something that's currently on my mind, and the interconnection also of the inner and the outer world.
It's kind of a big question. I won't tie you to it if you change your mind or anything, but I'm just curious. Do you think we as a species are like growing, or do you think we're essentially just a different symphony repeated, like from the ancient Egyptians, etc.?
I never had this thought that it might be just a repetition, because it would be if it was a perfect quote unquote repetition, it would also mean that we would need to hit the low point that the Egyptians have hit maybe at some point, and also hit the high point that they have hit again. I feel like materialistically speaking, yes, we're definitely growing. And when it comes to knowledge, also, I mean, just due to the fact that time is progressing, we have been able to spend more time on science and research and observing ourselves and reality, which is then therefore also resulting in growth. So even though it might not seem that we're fully growing, people say, yeah, we're living in the 21st century, yet we're still dealing with war and slavery maybe somewhere, and human trafficking and these kind of things. This doesn't mean that humanity isn't growing as a whole. So looking at any or comparing human progress to any stock chart, any other stock chart has his highs and his lows and it's dipping at times, and this could be the same for humanity. I think the ultimate sort of yardstick to measure society and humanity by is just their ability and their capacity to love and be empathetic and compassionate towards one another. And I feel like due to the fact that we're experiencing more of ourselves and we're facing these challenges, just makes us more introspective, reflective, and then also in turn more empathetic and compassionate of each other. So definitely would say that we as humanity are always growing.
Nice. I think so too. But I always like to hear different perspectives. Once again, two things can be true at once. We could be growing because there's perhaps parallel dimensions, maybe infinite dimensions and realities. There's so much we have yet to learn. But yeah, it's really interesting getting your perspective on this. Is there anywhere that you'd like to point people to follow what you do or to learn more about what you're learning about?
Yeah, so thank you for asking. And the medium I would say I'm most active on currently is Twitter, is X. I have an Instagram account also, which is only in German. But yeah, on Twitter, I would say I post the most frequently and also my deepest reflections. So Twitter at Leo von Böhlen is going to be my the place where you can find out more about me.
I will ask, since you brought it up, do you find a personality shift when you communicate in English versus communicating in German?
I wouldn't. say so. I would say it just depends highly on the people that I'm speaking to. I struggle. I mean, of like obviously since English isn't my first or native language, it's a bit harder for me to articulate than compared to German. But no, I wouldn't really say that there's a strong personality shift.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. For me, I noticed there's a bit of a change as I communicate in, say, Japanese, but I don't know how much of that is like personal or how much of that is kind of defined by the language you're speaking in, because each language has well, language is living. And so some language makes it perhaps easier to communicate certain emotions or certain ideas or concepts. But yeah, I was curious if kind of it's a persona almost of an English style of speaking or a German style of speaking, and perhaps even, I mean, within Germany, Germany is a vast country with many cultures throughout. There might be a difference in style from, I don't know, Bavaria to the northern parts.
Yeah, I would actually say I would say I do adapt to the quote unquote English culture, to the American culture, by speaking in English. So I would say American culture is more open and friendly and warm than the German culture, just stereotypically speaking. Therefore, yeah, my German persona or my English persona, sorry, would be a bit more open also than German per se. But I mean, yeah, it depends on the people I'm speaking to.
Well, to your people's credit, a lot of America is German. I was surprised at how much, because you tend to think of America as this formed entity, but it wasn't that long ago. We had loads of Germans, defining and building America. So perhaps some of that, once again, is part of the human consciousness. So just allowed to express itself, perhaps in a different chamber or different concert hall.
Yeah,
Well, Leonard, it was a pleasure speaking to you again. Please keep up the good work. I'll check out that book, Journey of Souls, and looks like I'll be booking a trip to Bali to try some of that 3 hour breath work. Thank you for the recommendation.
yeah. Thanks so much for having me on, David. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for the amazing questions, and yeah, stay in touch.